And restaurants will do it for me, but they don't want to learn what it means. It's amazing. Have you ever gone eating out and you find that the people serving you food don't seem to know anything about food and don't want to? It's like, and people go through the school system and they don't even learn what protein is, and that you can eat what you want, whatever feels good to you. Obviously, that's the main thing. But or also, um, you couldn't give me enough steak to keep me going. 4 mouthfuls of those pinto beans with a little bit of quinoa is better for me than all the steak in the world. Now, what are we going to do? Well, it's too bad a train doesn't come down here. It'd be so cool. Hey, hummingbird. Hey, hi. Yeah, you can tell you can tell by some of the clouds up here that they're chemtrailing a lot. They don't like the sun. Come out to here today and help Michael. By the time I probably get to the Pentlash River, I bet you the sun will be out. Michael will be out there, Archangel Michael, cleaning up the chemtrails. There'll be sun today, damn God. There'll be sun today, damn God. Hail Satan, damn God. Satan actually is the devil. Or sorry, God is the devil. If you think that Satan is the same as the devil, Satan will be God as well. And Satan is the truth. Satan is the father of truth. Satan may not have any kind of clear derivation. I think that An can mean death, so Satanya, which in most societies except Hebrew meant and means the truth, could also mean death, and how that vowel is used. Divyana, or the divine, means basically divide and kill. Right? When I meet sociopathic women, usually who are divining things in front of me, they are usually doing me harm. They attempt to divide and conquer your own will. And I've noticed in ways that are probably more disturbing to me than to them, although it often gives them a bit of something to think about. They'll never tell you that, of course, is that they're speaking a completely delusional language. A lot of therapists and religious people speak a nonsense language. They basically speak nonsense. Something interesting about the demonic. Demonic people, right? Demonic spirits are the spirits of people, or what used to be people. Always, listen to this carefully, work together. You know that? Demonic people always work together. If there's violence being done, people are working together to do it. What's more, whenever people are working together, they do evil. Right? All working, which is working together, is all meant to procure money by means of the torture and mortification of human flesh. That's what working is. Working is meant to be torture. Taxation and working are the same thing. To work is to die. To work is to torture. To speak in terms of the financial world and so-called real estate, right? No one in the world, you're a poor person, for instance, if you cannot own anything. And owners of property don't own their property. You'll notice in all your papers, it never says owner. It always says tenant, right? But they'll call you the owner. They might write, bank might write a letter and say to the owner. But on the official documents, it says tenant, right? Don't you know you're being had, my man? You're being had. It's better to speak it in a Scottish or an Irish accent. Scottish maybe. You're being had, man. You're being had from the beginning to the end. From the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top. From the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top. Look at the sun's trying to break through there. So it's been cold and wet for a while. And you can tell by looking at the sky that they're chemtrailing heavily up there to keep it that way. I don't think we really have had natural weather for a long time. I wonder what technology they were waiting for before they started the chemtrails. What was necessary to begin chemtrailing? It was in the mid-90s, right? And I don't take the same view of us, maybe a lot of people who believe in chemtrails or notice the chemtrails or have read about them or studied them. I don't. I think in many respects we could treat them as innocuous, except for the fact, to me, my sticking point is that they cover up the little bit of sun that we get here in Canada, and it selfishly pisses me off. And that's what finally got me. These people hate the sun. They hate sunlight, right? The good people always die young because their sun is strongest. Not in the media, not in Hollywood, that's always fake, but in the real life around us, the nicest people sometimes are the ones that die earliest. I had a 3-year-old aunt, and she was 3 before I was born, of course. And I believe she was raped to death by my uncle Art. She died in a tractor accident. But you see, when children are being raped, it's really more prone to accidents because it creates a disintegrating energy, right? Why do things go so well? You know, you come from a nice home when you're walking, right? Things are going well for you today. And you notice there's other people around you, things never go well for them. Well, because their energy field has been disintegrated. They live in a disintegrating world, right? The beautiful illusions that you live with for them have disintegrated, and your illusions are feeding on their disintegration. So you have an extraordinary advantage to people who aren't in a disintegrated state, right? All you have to do is listen to what nurses and doctors say when they treat, as they often do, a lot of poor people, right? And they make jokes about them behind their back. They talk about how filthy they are, right? They make very strong distinctions between those people and themselves and their people, right? So in this day and age in Canada, if you have a nurse in the family, your family's probably quite well off, and you marry well, because nurses are thought very highly of in Canada and in probably the States. And so it's kind of a class distinction, you know? It's a very reputable trade. You know, you're very close to the medical profession, that is doctoring, and it's a profession that is riddled with deception and greed and profit and disease and magic and witchcraft, right? And maybe even some decent healing. And never a cult in the world whose adherents just don't think that everything is wonderful, right? Because remember what I said, right? You torture people enough, and every surrogate family you find in the name of every professional, religious, social, and sexual association, right, is always going to be corrupted by the inciting conditions of your membership. A problem, that is, the dislocation in your own families, that membership will never solve, even as you begin to solve everyone else's problems, because you're not, right? You're really just spreading disease, right? Strength to us all, strength. Humans need strength. We want to gather strength. We want to feel bold, strong, protected, and safe. Over the last few weeks and months and years, that has not been easy for me. You know, in the course of living my life and walking and being a peaceful man, it's amazing how many things affect me. I was shopping at this health food store for 12 years, and there are signs whenever there's violence that this was never a particularly safe place and that would become inevitably violent. And I see those signs now, and I know them. I know them well. But the only time in 12 years I ever complained about an employee was a female who initiated violent verbal interaction with me. And the result of this was that I was told to leave. I was stalked, by the way, slandered in public. My voice was taken away. Nothing and no one would hear anything I had to say at that point. And I was put on, ambushed, and stalked, and told to leave after I'd already said, I'm going to have to leave. The same thing with the buses. First time I ever started complaining about bus drivers, my service started to drop off considerably, till eventually I was basically told by one driver, we don't want you. The local piece of transit is basically saying, we don't give a fuck about you. It doesn't matter if it was personal to me or just I happened to be in the way that day. You know, messages aren't always as personal as you think. When someone does violence to you, they say, why did they pick me? Well, violence picks all kinds of people, but it doesn't send you a letter saying, lucky you. We picked you from a random draw of people who just happen to have an abnormal, continued resonance of their subconscious and conscious mind, despite all of the torturous measures that the world has heaped upon you for 1,000 years. Welcome to death. And the people who are the healthiest are the people that often suffer the most. And the people with the most disease suffer the least. It's really hard to imagine that, eh? So I think if you suffer at all, and you're not dying of cancer, but you just, you suffer in your heart, you live with shock or anxiety or depression, you're one of the good ones, okay? Don't fuck that up. right? Your pain is worth something, not to God, right? Well, maybe, yeah, to God, to the industrial system, but it's really worth something to you and to me and to the real people of this earth and to the earth itself and to all the forces of nature, be they as they may, by all the names you and your family and your flesh and blood would give to them in the purest, most wonderful strength of the greatest possible sun, of the greatest tree of life in your family that was ever rooted in the best possible, indomitable bedrock of creation. That is yours. I don't give it to you. I'm not pointing it out to you. I'm not touching it. I'm not molesting it. I don't have the right to call it by name, but it is yours. You're welcome. It is yours. It's always been yours. Right? And anyone that takes it away from you is not your friend. And yet every day you work with people who are taking it away from you. They don't even notice that it exists. In all their spiritual and magical worlds, in all their sexual and professional associations, no one gives voice to it. No, right? Because they don't give voice to anything that they're not told already exists. And nothing wants you to see the power of man and the power of the sun. Nothing wants you to see the power of the spring. That's why every year, beginning on December 21st, they give birth to the death of spring, and to the child of spring, and to everyone's child. Upon marriage, matrimony, and the creation of every fucking unit of money that you call part of your wages, which means death. And language itself means torture and death. It's a demonic language. It's a demonic standard of science. That's why it's important to use the ideas of signaling and the standards of science, right? Which actually has the word sins built right into it as well, right? Around G for gender, right? Because that Masonic hand sign for peace means there are only two genders, right? So they fuck with them as much as possible. At the end of history, there's going to be nothing more important, among other things, than to say that there is a penis and there is a vagina, and they are not the same thing. And there's an increasing number of children in the world that don't know that. A penis is not a vagina. A man is not a woman. They're different, right? The guy who wants to hump on you and stick his penis in you is not the same as the girl that wants to open her legs and get dick. But women can fuck men as much as men can fuck women. Men can be fucked by women as much as women can be fucked by men. We can rape each other. And women are becoming increasingly Catholic. Men, well, they've been wells for generations, out of which women attempt to scoop whatever they can get from them, because let's face it, men are cunts, men are pussies, men are assholes. You gotta get what you can out of them. Right? A soul is an asshole. It's a yule of the soul. When someone's speaking out of their ass, right? It's a way for us to say that they're speaking bad magic. They're lying, right? Because what comes out of the ass of the Virgin Mary herself is a total lie and crock of shit. Is he a messianic carpenter? Or is he just a hard man to nail down? While our children get nailed to a cross every fucking day. The cross of the fiscal year. This cow. Ka is death. Finance. And is death. Right? And answer is death and war. Because death and war is always the answer. The answer is the ants whore. The ants whore, right? The ass whore. What's the answer to that question, teacher? Anne's a whore. Anne's a whore. Imagine if I wrote a story in grade 5 called My Hand is a Whore. My hand is a whore. She'll wrap her legs around anyone. So, truths of squalid camp are that between now, oh geese, hey ho, between now and returning here in about 4 hours, 5 hours, so something and someone of alcoholicum is going to reach out and touch me. I think we're good. People expect people to be loud. Around here in this area, there's a lot of creepy, very snobby beings. You would think that working would make people more humble, wouldn't you? That often makes them more arrogant. Isn't it weird how your parents go to work and it makes them worse people? It makes them more arrogant, more prone to lowering their inhibitions about showing aggression, belligerence, and sex, dancing and letting loose, having a good time. I noticed that all the people in my family that love dancing and getting drunk at weddings all liked working. And the only one who didn't like working, me, didn't like to dance. Because I don't like to do things I have to, that I'm forced to do. Things that aren't really meant to be done under those conditions. You know? Hey, free alcohol, free food, because someone's entered into the holy fucking so-called state of matrimony. Right? Like, this isn't fun. This isn't happy. This isn't a celebration of anything. This is death to all these people and their children. Just think about all those happily married people. Doesn't that just fill you with joy? Billions of dollars a year to get married. Every TV show in the world at some point involves someone getting married and someone having a baby. Among all their surrogate family workmates. All their professional associations, who are also their friends, their fathers, their mothers, their sons, their daughters, their new family. We're living in a cult-like global concentration camp, sustaining every day and repeating measures of ceremonial death and witchcraft. Hey, anyone with me? That sounds like fun. They don't tell you that because you're not the initiated. The people that are poor aren't just poor because they have less money. They're poor because they don't know what the fuck is happening to them. They don't know the difference between the oppressed and the oppressor. Only the oppressor knows that. That's why, young women who get into feminism and gender studies, right? They want it to be around men so much because it gives them a sense of like, hey, if I know who my oppressor is, I'm not oppressed anymore. Right? I can bring myself out from under. see that that's so kind of long. Let's walk on some. If you don't love me. I almost tripped and fell flat on my face as this car was going. Isn't that fascinating? Just a tiny little root that was over my foot. That's how easy it is to fall out here. I was at the grocery store. I had a couple cans of coconut milk. And I come up to the cashier, and I don't like cashiers, I don't like supermarkets. They're all tortured. They look at her tortured face. I'm already feeling bothered. She looks haggard. She looks unhealthy. Hello. She stands there all day, right? Torturing. I mean, people at supermarkets, the girls are getting tortured, right? Standing there scanning all this shit, right? You could probably do it yourself, right? You could probably do it yourself, and you could just have a conveyor belt and they could just bag groceries for you. Basically, that's what they would. That's basically the main thing that needs to be done by them. They're all bagged groceries, and I'm taking the cans out, whoop, 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 and I drop one. Oh, an accident. I always have accent when I'm disintegrating anything. It just lets me know, oh, something's wrong. Let's see if it's consciousness. This guy that lives here across the street here, I bet you he's never walked down these tracks. It's a beautiful walk. Walk into town, birds. They never do it. What do they do all day? Don't you ever enjoy nature? You know? Chicka chicka bum bum, bum bum, chicka chicka bum bum, hey. I know been back to Raven song in about 2 or more years. Into that part because I got sexually assaulted by my children. But it's okay. I mean, it's what a lot of them do and can do. Stupidity wins every time when there's violence. Stupidity always wins. And you notice that police will always favor homeowners over non-homeowners. There's a reason for that. Because the police are really tax agents for the crown. They all are. A policeman is a tax agent. He's a tax collector. Right? Remember in the Bible, Paul or Saul, and he walks around beating people and getting taxes? Basically, all of Islam funded itself by first extolling the virtues of Jews and Christians, and then going around in the later parts of the so-called development of the Quran and beating and extorting money and taxes out of Christians and Jews and building up all the money of their empire. Okay? Right? They're police officers. That's what they do. They beat up and stalk and extract flesh and blood, either money or the incarceration of your flesh and blood from the general population. Okay? That's what they do. They're tax agents. They do what Saul in the Bible is doing. They're actually Paul, more like, because Saul turns into a Paul, right? And when he's Saul, he does the worst possible things, and as the likeness of the Son. And when he becomes appalling, he becomes an amazingly wonderful person. But really, he is appalling to begin with. It's just that they turned the Saul into a Paul. Okay? Who's the father of like the Catholic Church or something, right? Or St. Peter, similar thing. And so a Paul leaseover, right, is doing the work of Saul as his incarnation as a violent tax collector, right? Right? So everyone gives money to the same religion and keeps the same religion in power. And that religion is the one that collects most of your money, right? Because for all the religion to be the most powerful religion in the world, it has to make sure it gets money from people, especially people who are not high up or very important members of that religion. So poor people, right? Blacks, certain kinds of whites, certain kinds of this people. So if you don't have as much money, you're not giving as much to the religion, they'll take things from you. I noticed that the police around here are more likely to pull over people if what? They're poor. Right? Saw a ticket being writing to a woman who probably can't afford to get her taillight fixed. Right? And they charge you more money. This becomes even more disgusting, right? When you consider how much money is taken from human beings every day. That the